Hey everybody, welcome to another video. Today we're going to be talking about the 1.15 update, and I'm super excited about it. The 1.15 update has brought us a few new features, including bee nests, bee hives, honey blocks, honeycombs, honey bottles, honeycomb blocks, and the bees. Now, before we get into all the cool new things that the 1.15 update has to offer, there is a bug that I found that I would like to demonstrate. So this bug is to do with the way enchanted armor renders on you, the player, as well as other mobs. And what it causes to happen is it glows, which is kind of cool, but I'm pretty sure that's not the intended feature. But if you look at me, I am glowing like super bright, and it's actually kind of cool, but I'm pretty sure this isn't an intended feature for the armor to glow this brightly. And if we're lucky, we might be able to find some mobs that have picked up an item or that have armor on them that would also have this effect. Perfect. As you can see over here, this skeleton has an enchanted bow, and it is glowing like crazy, just like the armor on the player. And if we were to be able to give him some armor, or the zombie some armor, and if they pick it up, you would see that it's glowing. But as well as the items themselves are also glowing. And so I just wanted to show this bug. It's the only one I've found so far, but I thought it was worth mentioning. So while that is an interesting bug, it appears to only be cosmetic, and I haven't seen any other major bugs in this update, besides the bees, of course. Now, I'm sure everybody is wondering, well, there's new bees, how do we catch them? Well, you can use a lead, and if they have pollen on them, they'll want to go into a hive, and you can direct them to a hive, which is pretty nice. Now, if we set ourselves into E-mode survival, and we get ourselves a silk touch axe, we can actually pick up this hive with the bees already inside of it. So if we were to come over here and place this down somewhere else, eventually you would see the bees come back out. And you can see that if we break their hive, there are 2 bees in there, and now they're mad. Which is unfortunate, because if they sting me, they will die, and they also try to kill me, which is sad. So don't do that. It's not a good idea. Trust me. This is unfortunate. So the best way of transporting your bees is to actually get them to go inside of a beehive. So the best way that I've found to do that is if they have pollen on them, you can place a beehive near them and they will want to go into it. Or you can wait till nighttime and they'll automatically try to go inside of a beehive so that you can collect it with your Silk Touch Axe and take it back to your base. Especially if you have a world that you've made pre 1.15 like I have, you'll want to collect these guys so that you can be getting their fancy honey blocks. The other way you can transport these guys is to actually grab a lead and pull them around, which is especially useful if you have found some bees and you want to try to take them to a hive. You can kind of pull these guys along and either pull them to your base, or you can pull them close to a hive if they have pollen on them and they will go inside. Or if it becomes nighttime or it starts raining, they will also try to get inside of a beehive. And then you can just Silk Touch it with your Silk Touch Axe and take it back to your base. Now, if you do not use Silk Touch on a bee nest, then the bees will pop out and they'll get very angry at you. But a beehive that is crafted by the player will actually keep the bees inside of it, and you won't have to worry about them getting angry at you. Be free. Now, the first thing you want to do after getting bees back to your base is you probably would like to get some honeycombs so that you can make some beehives so that you can make bigger honey farms so you can get all your honey block needs. So the easiest and fastest way to do it, if you don't want to do any redstone, is to place a campfire down, and then you can place your beehive under the campfire, and the bees will not be hostile to you, which means that when they come out, you can come over and shear their hive or take the honey once they've made it, and you will not be attacked and your bees won't die. So you'll want to make sure that they have some flowers nearby, and if they ever decide to come out, make sure it's day. If they ever decide to come out, you will see they're attracted to the flowers and they start to get pollen so that they can make their honey. So while you've got that started, you can then begin to shear it as soon as it gets full and stuff like that. But the problem with this is you have to do it manually, and your bees might get lost during the night, or you might accidentally hit them because they're just flying around, because they're bugs. And who doesn't try to hit a bug when it's trying to fly in your face while you're trying to record? Yeah, everybody does. And you don't want to hit a bee, because then they'll get mad, and then you'll have dead bees. So the fastest way to get yourself started is to possibly do it manually for a little while and get your honeycombs so that you can create your bee nest. So the way that is the simplest way to make a bee farm is to come up a couple of blocks. We'll just make one 4 wide here, and we are going to place our bee nest here. But because we have the bees trapped in from earlier, we don't want to do that yet. We want to grab ourselves some glass and ourselves a dispenser, because we do not want our bees to try to escape. Now, because there's still a few glitches with the bees pathfinding, you will want to make sure this is a solid glass cube around the farm, as you don't want your bees escaping. Fill that in with glass. We can then come down here and grab ourselves a flower, because they will need flowers so that they can pollinate. Then the bees will only go in and out through the front entrance, and you can see this guy wants to be a part of our farm already. So now we can temporarily take this row out and place in our beehives, which have our bees in them, and quickly seal this off. And we got an extra guy because he wanted to be a part of today's video. Next, we're going to grab our dispensers, and we can place those like so above the bee nests. And there's a couple ways you can do this bee farm. You can either make it for honey bottles, or you can make it for honeycomb. So the way you would do it for honeycomb is you're going to take shears, and we're going to place the shears in each one of these dispensers so that we can get the honeycomb. And we are going to take a observer output from the back, like so. And then we can fill, there we go. And then we can fill this in like this. As you can see, the bees are coming in and out, having a good time already. And as soon as it gets filled, this will shear all of the beehives and get the honeycomb. Now, because the honeycomb likes to pop out everywhere, you will need to grab a hopper minecart system for underneath, as they tend to go everywhere, and you'll want to kind of fill in all of the extra space to try to make it so that your honeycomb only goes where you want it to. And as you can hear, all of our bees are kind of coming in and out, doing their thing. You can see this guy's pollinated, but because all the beehives are full, he cannot actually get in there, so he's just going to kind of sit there and wait until he can. And just like that, we now have our first honeycomb farm. As you can see, the bees are still kind of coming in and out, getting their pollen and going back into the hives. And as soon as these are full, this will actually shear the beehive, and our hopper minecart will actually pick up the honeycomb. Now, it will take a little while for the bees to get their pollen and come back, but the cool thing is this will work in your spawn chunks, working all the time. But there's an even better location than your spawn chunks to build it, and that is to actually build a chunk loader in the nether and build it in the nether. Since there's no day-night cycle in the nether, the bees won't sleep, meaning that the bees will always be harvesting their honey in the nether. Now, I'll leave a link in the description below to El Mango's video where he demonstrates how this works and how to. Now, the second honey farm that we are going to make using the bees is going to actually get us honey bottles, which we can use to make the best block in the game, the honey block. So what we can do is we can put our hoppers next to these flowers instead, so that when we place in the beehives, the beehives will be directly on top of those hoppers. So we can just quickly place in all those before the bees decide to come out. And now they are all inside. So just like before, we are going to put our, just like before, we're going to place in all of our dispensers up top. But this time we're going to add a row of blocks down here with comparators on each one of these. And this is going to be detecting the level of the honey so that we can appropriately use the honey bottles. So we'll make sure that our redstone dust comes out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, making sure that this last one is a solid block. And we can go ahead and repeat that for each one of these right here. And we're using slabs here so that the redstone can travel upwards to activate our farm, like so. And so as these fill up with honey, they are actually going to... Oh, I let all the bees out. Well, actually, this is fine, as they'll try to pathfind inside during the nighttime. As you can see, all the bees are trying to go back inside of their home. And so we can go ahead and fill up all these dispensers with glass bottles, making sure to fill every position so that the honey bottle will fall out below and be collected by our hoppers. There we go. And theoretically, we should be able to see that some of this redstone dust is lit up, which means that the bees have started to fill it up with honey. TNT actually really explodes a lot better than it used to, and creates a lot less lag while doing so. So here I've placed about 1,331 TNT, and so we're going to go ahead and test it out. See how lag friendly. We can open up our F3, and we can see that, it's still struggling a little bit, but we're staying moving. As you can see, all the TNT has just finished exploding, creating this beautiful crater in our world. And you can really see that the frames per second really didn't drop as much as they would if I were in 1.14. So let's actually go ahead, open up a world in 1.14 and try this again. Alrighty, so now as you can see in the top corner of the F3, we are now in 1.14.4 to do the same test with the same exact size of TNT and see how my computer handles it and how Minecraft in general. So right now we're at 53 frames per second. And we go creeping to a halt at 0 frames per second as the TNT is really lagging. As you can see, the particle effects are just everywhere, kind of glitching out. And everything is not rendering correctly, and it was really laggy, and it just did not feel nice at all. And on 1.15, this issue is fixed dramatically, where we kept our frames pretty well in 1.15. And I even did a test earlier that I would repeat with over 30,000 blocks of TNT, but my computer didn't like that, and I don't think it would render very well on video. So you guys can just imagine what that looks like. Big change that they made in 1.15 is chunk loading. They made it a lot better. So before, I could run around the world and it would have some glitches. So I'm actually going to go into spectator mode and crank up the speed as high as it'll go. And we're going to fly around the world. And you can see that it struggles a little bit because we're loading new chunks and that takes a little while. And I kind of jumped the gun a little bit, did too fast. But as soon as the world actually generates, which realistically you're not going to be going that fast, and the recording software I'm using also caused my computer to load. But when I was doing some testing in my single player, oh hey, a raid outpost. When I was doing testing in my single player world and going places I had already loaded, as you can see, because we've already loaded these, they load super quickly and efficiently, and I can just fly around this world at top speed. And there's no real chunk loading problems. The only point where it slows down a little bit is where we're generating new terrain, and even that is pretty smooth for the most part. And if you were going in survival, there's no way you could load chunks this quickly. So I might have jumped the gun already, but I did actually update my single player world to 1.15 after doing some testing. I didn't find that any of my complicated farms were broken. Everything seemed to work good. My base actually got like 45 frames per second instead of the 32 it usually seems to get. And with the modifications to chunk loading and stuff, I was able to fly super quickly out. I got myself some bees and got myself set up with a little simple bee farm. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Feel free to leave a like and comment below, and I'll see you next time. Bye.